Definitely. Yeah, actually, shout out to Olav. That was really great. I run an organization of solution architects, and I think a lot of what Olaf showed, but also the style in which he did it, I think is really important. I wish I could have had some of our folks watch this because when you have fundamentally new and transformative technology, it's really important to go slow, to experiment, and and also not be afraid to deal with some hiccups, right? Because we're trying to get folks within our customer organizations to really understand what this technology is capable of and how disruptive it is. And also, I think just understand how much it changes the set of personas in the enterprise who can participate in creating value. And so I think that's the real goal, right? When we go out and show this technology to our customers, it's to get them thinking about how it can transform the domains in which they're really experts. And I think you did a great job of that. So thank you. All right. I also want to thank Tavant for having us here. It's great to learn more about the company. It got me thinking about how we can be better partners together. And it is also great to meet some of the customers, including some faces that I've come across before in my career. So it's been a really great couple of days with some great presentations. I think being before flights is still better than being before cocktails. But I'm going to try to make this relatively quick. I think a lot of what I'll cover in this presentation is stuff that we've been through in various forms over the last 2 days. So probably more validation and confirmation of themes than really sort of eye-opening new information. Let me see if this clicker works. Okay, great. So I thought what we'd do is a little bit of first sort of status. Where are we in this journey with generative AI? What's sort of the status, state of the union today? Then we'll talk a little bit about some of the key themes that we're seeing with our customers that are successful in this area. What are they focusing on? What are some key characteristics that we see over and over again? And then we'll end with some actual customer cases, probably from some businesses that you know. And these are all public cases. We won't cover them in super excruciating detail here, but they're all public. They all have blog posts, in some case code assets that you can go and look at and learn more. Sound good? Yeah. Cool. I always have to be careful with these builds. I have an ambitious marketing department. Okay, so first, kind of just a status of where are we right now. It's been kind of a whirlwind 2 years, really, with generative AI really being sort of one of the main drivers and themes of our business. And so I just kind of wanted to reflect on what we've seen and where we think we are now. So 2023, we already talked about the timeline, like late 2022 was when ChatGPT really hit the scene and everything was disrupted. In 2023, I think we as a business scrambled to kind of get ourselves enabled to really go and talk to customers about this and to help them explore this new technology. So in 2023, a lot of enablement, I would say a lot of education, a lot of super early POCs, kind of identifying businesses within our various customer segments that were already experimenting with this technology and sort of able to lean in. But it was really a mad scramble. It almost seems like it was 10 years ago, right? But we really had to get the whole company and also our customers oriented around the scale and the scope of this transformation, and then really focus on enablement. What is this technology? How does it work? How do you consume it? How should you think about it as a customer, and how do you get started? 2024 continued sort of, I would say, large-scale POCs, and that's when we really saw the first serious production use cases. As a matter of fact, I think all of the customer cases we'll talk about here were launched in 2024. So our customers kind of rapidly organized themselves and found ways to get these products built and also to get them in the hands of customers. Obviously, as you sort of adopt this technology, some of the classic questions come around costs, performance, and all that stuff. And I think, that is still to some extent where we are, but also what we're seeing in 2025 is now we're taking stock of all these POCs, what kind of value was delivered, and how do we continue this transformation. I think everybody is aligned on the scope and scale of what's happening. I think there's still a lot of questions around, like, how do we really do this in order to transform our businesses? This is a little bit of a weird slide, but I think partly what we wanted to communicate here is like the scope of this transformation we're seeing with generative AI. This is not something that's just happening in IT. This is something that's happening across the business. So really, when we think about this from a transformation perspective, we have to engage more broadly. We have to talk to the C-level, and we have to talk to all the lines of businesses and get a perspective on how Gen AI is actually transforming them. Obviously, there are hotspots. I think some of these will probably be familiar to you. We talked some already, and we saw how AI is transforming software development, how it's transforming things like root cause analysis and IT operations, and then customer service and sales. Those are typically hotspots where we see a lot of action because there are a lot of productivity gains to be had there. But generally, this is an all-encompassing transformation. There's no part of anyone's business that's going to be untouched by generative AI. And I think that's important to think about as we kind of approach our customers. Okay, so we've seen this, I think, in a couple different ways through some of the presentations over the last couple of days, is kind of the assessment from the business when we look at the results of what we've been doing throughout the last 2 years is we've definitely identified areas where generative AI is contributing to productivity gains. We're getting more efficient in how we're building software, maybe in terms of how we're doing customer service. We've yet to see definitive across the board impact on revenue, right? So there's still a little bit of a mismatch between what the CEO is focused on, how do we grow revenue, and then what benefits we're seeing from Gen AI. So clearly that is going to be a key focus as we kind of move forward. We're seeing this with customers in terms of, in maybe in late 2023 through 2024, the mandate was really to get your feet wet with the technology, and now there's more scrutiny on what benefits is this actually going to drive. We're seeing this, as customers are evaluating basically where to place their investments. So a lot more focus on business value, on long-term value, and less on sort of, proving the technology with a small set of early adopters. Okay, so I want to talk a bit about what the companies that are successful in this area are actually doing. It's probably not going to be a whole lot of news to anybody here, but data foundations and data strategy remain really, really key to success in generative AI. The slide here is kind of self-explanatory, but when we look at any Gen AI application that's successful, it really is the tip of the iceberg, right? It sits on top of all the data that's underneath it. And so the businesses, the customers that have invested in data foundations and data strategy in terms of their capability to ingest all the relevant data for their business, to store it in ways that let them transform it and deliver it in flexible formats, and with governance, is really turning out to be a huge differentiator here. We've probably all been in some flow of having to consider, okay, now we have to use a thing called vector databases because it stores and presents information in a way that's more efficient for LLMs to parse, right? Like, now, how do we do that? based on the data that we already have, for example. And we see, I would say, a clear difference between the folks that have focused on this and put themselves in a good position. Often that's closely correlated with their cloud adoption, because obviously the cloud is more primitive or more flexible in terms of the primitives that it offers for data storage, data processing, data analysis, et cetera. So investing in data strategy, data foundation, data governance is probably the most important thing that you can do for your business in order to be ready to realize the benefits of generative AI as technology broadly. I don't think it's probably not news to anybody, but there's still a lot of work to do. And that's what we're finding this year in 2025 is when I go and talk to my customers, we're really examining are you ready from a data perspective? Because if data quality is not good, you're going to get subpar accuracy, subpar quality from LLMs, and ultimately not the benefits that you're looking for. Yeah, so we talk about, kind of in these three dimensions, are we able to store and process all the data that's relevant to the business? Do we have the proper strategy and technology to integrate with data sources from partners, et cetera? And then do we have a governance framework that allows us to proceed with confidence in terms of being certain, for example, when we're enabling agentic use cases, that we're certain exactly what data we're granting the LLM access to, and so forth. Any questions on data strategy? Great. Feel free to interrupt if you have questions. The second thing I just want to talk about here, we've talked, I think, a fair bit about it throughout these last 2 days, is AI-driven development. Almost all the customers that we see on the forefront of deploying and using generative AI across the business have already made a big investment in AI-driven software development. And since a lot of our customers that I deal with are fundamentally software companies, that means broadly AI-driven product development. I think it's just important both sort of from the perspective of understanding where the technology is most ready. This is definitely one of the most fully baked use cases for generative AI and where we're most confident about the benefits of the technology. But it's also, I think, a cultural transformation point, right? Like the companies that have adopted this technology internally and are transforming themselves internally are more likely, I think, to build good products for their customers using this technology. So if I go and talk to an enterprise customer, regardless of who they are, this is a good indicator of how they're transforming themselves and how ready they are really to drive benefits across the board with generative AI. We've already seen a lot of tools in action through Olav's demonstrations and others. Like these are some of the things where some of the aspects of AI-driven software development where our customers are already driving quite significant benefits. How many in here are using, in some shape or form, any of these tools or equivalent tools for AI-driven software development? And how many have not adopted any of these tools within their business? Don't know? Okay. That's okay. Yeah, it's interesting because it's usually a pretty strong indicator of maturity in this area, but there's a lot of I would say a lot of benefits that are ready for you to realize in this area. All right, so I'll switch and try to highlight some use cases of customers that have been successful in this area, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about how they exemplify kind of focus on data in particular, since I think that's important and that's characteristic of all of these three use cases that we're going to talk about here. So the first company I'll talk about is DoorDash. Assume everybody's familiar with DoorDash. Dependent, maybe even in some cases, probably me. So DoorDash obviously is a super successful company operating at extreme scale. What we worked on with DoorDash was their Dasher support capabilities. So DoorDash has tens of thousands of Dashers. These are the people that are delivering your meals. And there's a large kind of support interface that handles queries from Dashers. And typically, this is the case for DoorDash, when a Dasher needs something, they're doing it either when they're fulfilling a request, which means they're usually driving. So the primary interface here is voice. So when a Dasher has a question, they want to get resolved DoorDash, usually chat is actually not the modality, it's voice. They call in while they're moving from one place to the other. And so DoorDash was dealing with literally hundreds of thousands of calls from Dashers wanting information about taxes, various forms of benefits, app issues, etc. They decided to build a solution using Amazon Bedrock and Amazon Connect to deliver a voice bot, essentially, that would handle most of these questions and be able to decrease the amount of calls that were transferred to a live agent. They did this, they built a solution in about 8 weeks using our Generative AI Innovation Center. And we're able to start testing this solution in production in early 2024. I think there's an interesting point here that even a company like DoorDash, which is a super sophisticated engineering-led company, actually turned to our professional services division of AWS for help. I think even the most sophisticated companies in the world are thinking really hard about how do we accelerate our internal capabilities, like what can we do to enable ourselves faster, right? And I think as I think about Tavant and I think about what companies should be looking at in order to enable themselves and getting the right partners, figuring out how you can use partners that have these skills and have the experience to bootstrap your own capability in this area is really important. Just wanted to highlight that even sort of super digitally native, highly sophisticated engineering organizations like DoorDash are doing this. And I know they're also a customer of Tavant. So the solution here was really successful. They started by deflecting or by routing a small percentage of traffic to the voice bot, and then gradually shifting it over towards the end of 2024 or sort of early autumn. They fully transitioned this, and this solution is now in production, delivering more than $3 million in operational cost savings. So it's a really successful initiative, and in fact, something that's been turned into a case study with full code assets, et cetera, and we're sort of implementing this as a pattern with a lot of customers. As you can see, there's a link here actually in the slides. I'll send the slides. They're public and fine to send out afterwards, so you can click on the links and actually go read more about the DoorDash use case if you so desire. So that's any questions about, are there any questions about DoorDash?
What were the KPIs that they were using to track the success of this? I look at the 2.5 seconds response latency, that's great.
Yeah.
The 3 million in savings, fantastic, right? Have they also looked at, like this is really for drivers' experience?
Yeah.
Which is a controllable for them,
right?
But have they also looked at complaints from drivers as a result of automated service versus someone management?
Yeah. So one key stat you look at there is like, what is the percentage of these calls that actually have to be routed to a live agent? And so they've seen a massive decrease in that as well, which indicates that we're actually able to drive to resolution. Cool. All right. I'll talk a little bit about INRIX. It's a super interesting company. Anybody familiar with them? So INRIX is a transportation insights and analytics company. They have, I think they've been around for a long time. What they do is they analyze transportation networks, traffic data, et cetera. They try to predict things like where's there going to be congestion, sort of correlate all the different event sources for traffic data, and try to predict, for example, if there's suddenly no traffic in a spot where there's normally a lot of traffic, why is that? And so forth. And they work with transportation departments. They also work with companies like Amazon Logistics to help provide transportation analytics and insights. They are generally, I would say, an AI first company. They've been building their own models. They've been running sort of advanced prediction scenarios for a long time, and they've built a very large data lake of 50 petabytes of data on AWS. So it's a good example of a company that was sort of really primed from a data strategy perspective to take advantage of GenAI. And so they had this super sophisticated product already that was very good at sort of traffic root cause analysis. The question then is, once you have an analysis of what is happening, then there's the question of, well, what should I do about it, and what results can I expect? And that's why they built Compass, which is a generative AI powered, or sort of LLM powered, sort of companion to their main analytics product. And so what this technology does is, once you have an analysis of a traffic scenario, you can ask, okay, well, what should I do here? Should I improve signage? Okay, I'm in California. In the context of California, like historically, what has happened when we improved signage in these conditions with this type of scenario? And the technology will provide an answer based on actually accessing the data sources that are relevant, like the government reports that are specifically relevant to the scenario, the policies and laws that are specific to the region or the area, and provide essentially a proposal for what to do. It's a pretty interesting solution. It was, I think, Caltrans awarded INRIX the first sort of GenAI contract on the basis of this product. So it's now being used in California to predict how to resolve congestion issues, safety issues, and so forth. So it's a really interesting solution. And I think it's a good example of what you can do when, from sort of a data perspective, you're ready to go, right? No, that's not the necessarily the foundation for every customer we deal with, but within a very short development cycle, they were able to build this product. It also highlights, I think, sort of the different modality of analytics that we get with LLMs. Like the way that they look at data is different, right? We can provide the root cause analysis. We can, via techniques like RAG, give it access to a bunch of relevant context, and then get very advanced, very high quality reasoning about solutions and projected impact. So this is an interesting one to learn more about as well. And then finally, I'll talk about BMW. I know Tavant has a large footprint in the automotive space, so I thought this was an interesting one as well. It's sort of conceptually similar to the INRIX example, in the sense that BMW obviously has had sort of a large connected fleet for a long time, and they've had a large amount of data flowing through the pipe from connected vehicles. They've still had a pretty complex workflow for determining root cause of problems that happen at the edge that involved many different roles, many different data sources, and many different sort of modes of analytics. And they decided to essentially rebuilt this whole pipeline as an agent-powered LLM-based workflow. So they looked at the different sources, log sources, metric sources, architectural sources, understanding kind of the whole flow of data and what components are involved. And they were able to build a solution that essentially was able to look at problems, like let's say somebody's reporting that they can't unlock their car using the app, BMW app. Going from sort of that report being submitted in natural language, having a agent or sort of an agentic system that can go out and look at all the data sources, identify the problems, bring back and form a hypothesis on what the root cause is and suggest a path to resolution. They were able to achieve 85% accuracy in RCA in root cause analysis and detection. So it's pretty significant results that cuts the diagnostics time down quite dramatically. And again, just it decreases the amount of roles and transitions and complexity in the process of actually dealing with things like customer complaints, but also obviously sort of any kind of technical issues that flows through this pipeline. What I think is interesting about this is, the data was already there. The data was already flowing, but it was flowing through a set of very, very complex processes that required a lot of human intervention in order to execute the workflow successfully. And that's all changed now because they have a set of agents with very discrete responsibilities that are managing and monitoring kind of the pipeline of data as it flows from the vehicles into their data storage systems. So that's BMW. Any questions? All right, cool. Well, so those are three examples of companies that we've seen be successful in this area. I think it's still early, but they're all cases in which I think the organizations had a clear view of like what needs to be improved, what are the KPIs, kind of what is the business impact, and what is the data that's required on the back end for this to be successful. For example, in the context of INRIX, right? What is all the contextual data that need to be supplied to the LLM in order to be able to make relevant suggestions to someone in California versus someone in Washington State, for example? And do we have that, and can we deliver that in a way that lets us get high quality results? And then, as with any software project, obviously having clear KPIs, being able to measure whether we're delivering results that are better than the solutions we have in place today has been really key. I think this is still early. In the case of BMW, it is an agentic implementation, but there's still much more to do. I think even since they launched their solution, the maturity and evolution in like agentic frameworks, how agents talk to each other, all of this stuff is happening and evolving before our eyes, and we don't expect this to slow down at all. So with that, I'll say thank you and see if there are any other questions. Any questions from Morten?
We can go back to the slides. There's one place where you said the time to market went from 6 to 8 months to 6 to 8 weeks, right? So
I think it was in the INRIX.
The INRIX one.
I think so.
The time to market can be a multitude of things. Was it primarily attached to building the capabilities, and this helped accelerate building of the capability by that much?
I think in this case, I'm actually not sure, but I think maybe what we're talking about in this case is sort of INRIX's customers' results, deploying the solution and actually getting value from it.
Not that Bedrock accelerated it by.
No, although it hopefully should, right? I mean, that's sort of the I purposely kind of didn't want to come here and demo AWS products today because I think a lot of you are already using them, and Olav also took care of that for me yesterday. I think that was a little Bedrock demo. But yeah, I mean that's part of what we're doing with Bedrock, right? Is we're delivering sort of a level of abstraction that lets you consume these models in an API-based way that's very similar to what you're probably already used to in your business.
So the tooling and infrastructure helps accelerate.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you think about sort of our strategic approach to this sort of generative AI stack, right? Like we definitely have that kind of layered approach where, at the top we have the apps that you can consume. Connect is an example of that, right? Today is an AI-powered contact center. Below that, we sort of have Bedrock that allows you to build your own applications. And then underneath, we have the compute and data infrastructure, including GPUs if you want to do that. And you need to build models or you need to sort of, for some reason, build your own inference layer. But for most customers, that shouldn't be necessary.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Morten.
Yep.
I'm ex-AWS, so that's.
Yeah.
I see a lot of clients wanting to host their own custom models, even SLMs, right? But the cost is very prohibitive, especially with the model unit approach in AWS. Can you shed some light as to how clients are navigating through those cost constraints for hosting a custom model?
Yeah. I think this is all evolving still. And you're referring specifically to sort of custom model import in Bedrock?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I think it's evolving quite rapidly, and there are multiple aspects to it. And one of them is what's sort of going on at the compute level, right? And I think we even had some releases out today around what we're doing with Trainium, and just like we've done with Graviton, we're trying to really work on bringing cost performance down at the compute layer. That'll ultimately affect inference costs, right, and hopefully deliver benefits to our customers there. But yeah, I mean, I think we're still in a cycle of rapid evolution there.
So what is the typical life cycle of schedule of these projects, for example, DoorDash or Innovate, so to the value realization, not the POC, I'm talking about full projects.
Yeah. So maybe I can, I mean, I can certainly answer it specifically in the context of DoorDash. So I think as we mentioned on the slides there, like the implementation time was sort of on the order of a couple of months. And then over, I would say the following like 4 to 5 months, like there was a gradual rollout of the capability in production. Obviously, some of the digital natives are different because they have a very narrow interface to their consumer, right, through the app. And they typically have pretty sophisticated capabilities for conducting things like A/B testing. So I think a company like DoorDash is very well positioned to do that kind of gradual rollout and to respond very, very quickly to the results that they're seeing. But that was a cycle for them. Obviously, depending on how you deliver your product to your customer can vary. Which one?
The next one. As I was specifically interested when you said the integration with Bedrock agents and the CloudWatch and CloudTrail analysis. Do you have any integrations with Datadog dashboards or Datadog metrics?
Well, I'm not sure exactly actually, but I know that there are already things like MCP servers for Datadog, and so you could surely use that with Bedrock.
Okay.
I think that would sort of be the preferred way to do that today.
And is there any integration with AWS offered products like MSK or MSF that the agents can analyze the performance of those resources?
I think generally yes. I'll have to get back to you if there's sort of a specific connector, but generally, yes, you can certainly build Bedrock agents that'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
This might be a little bit off topic, but just curious, basically, in terms of customer journey mapping, are there certain tools that you use in this sort of automating using GenAI or agents, a particular tool set that is helpful for us to take?
Sort of in terms of how you sort of plan and orchestrate projects, or?
Whatever the product is, just kind of understanding the current process through some sort of, customer journey mapping, and then, automating certain pieces of it and being able to compare it to, are there tool sets currently that, is provided by Amazon?
I don't know if there's something provided by Amazon. We use a variety of tool sets internally, and we use sort of various common techniques for sort of value mapping and figuring out, obviously how, value flows through processes within a business and where there's opportunity for improvement. I'm not sure if we really have a sort of a ready-made solution for you to use for that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it was a question down here.
Quick question. So you talked about the data strategy, integrated data strategy, right? So still in enterprises, IT serves data platform as a service to all the businesses. So this was working great until pre-agentic or pre-generative AI era. And what AWS as a hyperscalers are advising the IT to transform in the data strategy for the future. And the second part of the question is that how, as an SI organization or services organization, how well we could partner with you guys to go to market. I see opportunity, but what is your take?
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily that you have to transform anything. Some businesses are in really good shape and have been aggressive in sort of driving, I think, sort of migration and transformation of their data estate to the cloud, which leaves them, I think, in a good position to build these kinds of apps and experiences. But there are also a lot of customers that are still in the transition. And so I think what we're really doing when we talk to our customers is before we really get into actually building GenAI powered product, we do an assessment of where are you? And we try to map like, okay, for this product to be successful, what data is necessary? Does that data exist in a way where we can easily make it accessible to the LLM? Is the format, correct? Or do we need to change anything there? So I think we've started focusing a lot in that area because we've seen sort of the early successes and also some of the failures, right? And they usually connect back to this area. And so I think when I think about how we go to market with our SI partners, I think you can play a huge role there, right? In sort of assessing and really sort of taking a look at within the customers that you work with, are there readiness issues that are ultimately going to compromise the results versus sort of accelerate the journey to value? So that's something, and whether that's sort of migrating from data centers to the cloud, or it's looking at like sort of agility in terms of, if the business is suddenly asking for a data set in a different format, delivered in a different way, can we actually do that easily?